Thank you for being here, Joe. It's nice to meet you finally, and I'm sure we're gonna have great insights from all your work. So, if you want to just start by explaining us your a little bit the highlights of your journey, your professional journey, what brought you to this
Mhm.
new idea or model and vision for sales.
Well, I started selling I learned how to sell by selling books door to door, working 80 hours a week, straight commission. And I realized right away that there's two sales that need to happen. And maybe a better way of explaining how it kind of created or how it came about was looking at an example of what happens typically in a sale. We have had meetings, whether it's a new meeting or a sales meeting, where maybe it's just a great sales meeting. Let's say it's a brand new meeting and you're meeting in the lobby and you see two people walking down the hall out of the corner of your eye. One of them just happens to be your neighbor, and the other one is the client you're going to meet or the new prospect. And it's like it's a great boost in rapport. You get to talk, joke around, or talk and joke around. And your neighbor even says, "You're not working with Joe. Joe's an awesome guy." And so it's a great boost to the sales call. And you go down the hall and you have your meeting, and the meeting is just great. I mean, as you're establishing rapport, you're talking about the fish on the wall, and you look over and you see a picture of your buddy from eighth grade. And you talk about that Yahoo for a while. And again, it rolls into a great meeting. He's asking questions, he's laughing at your jokes. And the meeting ends saying, "Joe, can you come back in 2 weeks? And I want to see a proposal." On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 10. It's a great meeting. 2 weeks come by and we're getting ready, and then I get a voicemail and say, "Hey Joe, listen, I can't make it. I got a kid who's homesick today. Can we do it in 2 weeks? Let me know if that works. Thanks, buddy. I'll see you then." And you're like, "Okay, that's fine." We bumped it back 2 weeks. He called me buddy. We're still friends. So the next 2 weeks come by, and we come in. This time the admin walks down the hall and you knock on the door and he goes, "Yeah, come on in. I got to finish this email. Give me 30 seconds." And you hear him typing and he goes, "Okay, listen, we got to cut this short because I got a meeting. I got called across town. Let's see what you got." And you jump in and you start doing your presentation, but it's different. It's a different meeting. It's like that first meeting was like a Norman Rockwell, warm and cozy fire, and it was friendly. Now it's like you're on a block of ice, and he's not laughing at your jokes, and he's looking at his watch, he's looking at his computer, and you walk out of there with, "I need to think about it." And I got people kept saying, "Joe, what am I doing wrong at the second meeting? I'm not getting it right. I have great first meetings, and what am I doing wrong with the second meeting?" And that's where kind of how the Sell Nothing came, because we fixed that problem. The problem is not at the second meeting, it's at the first meeting. And I want to walk you through what happens with the sale. If I could share my screen. There we go. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we're seeing a house,
And
right?
I always double check because I sometimes, so we always say we presentation, we don't bring everybody with me. Um, but this is what happens in the sale. It's basically at the buying curve. And when in sales, the couple of things are happening. First, this is a graph of it. There's two sales that can happen. There's a logical sale, there's an emotional sale, or a logical bucket, an emotional bucket. Both sales are important, but we need both of them to get the next step. This graph is kind of charting their emotional and logic interest is on the axis over here, and time is just on the bottom. But what we want to do is figure out what happens. And this, what I'm going to talk to, is very transferable. It works in shorter selling cycles, longer selling cycles, transactional sales, relationship sales. This is very transferable how it works. But when we're talking and we're trying to make these sales, I use the bucket as my example. Both buckets need to be filled: the logical sale and the emotional sale, the logical bucket, the emotional bucket. And if I were to ask Chandler, I'll ask you, because
Yeah.
you know this, which bucket or which sale is more important, the logical or the emotional? What do you think?
The emotional.
Correct. It was a loaded question because yeah, we know. Um, but why do you say that?
Well, because the when we make decisions, at least for me, I'm when we make decisions, we make decisions because we we want to know the story. We want to be connected. We want to feel empowered in some way.
Mhm.
And as long as there are certain criteria, there's always going to be criteria that makes I'm sure, that we say, okay, well, it makes sense if so and so. And if you can get those things, then you just have to get the person to believe, to feel it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not poo-pooing the logical sale. It's important.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not minimizing that, but it confirms the sale. The emotional sale or the emotional bucket, that makes it happen. Emotions cause people to act. So, and what I'm looking at, we have to have both buckets filled. Let's talk about the buckets. The logical bucket is filled with my voice. I'm the expert. And my words fill up that bucket. And I have to get it to the next point where if it's full, I can go on and make that I get half the sale made. The emotional bucket, a little bit higher engagement, is filled with their voice. And emotions are weird and fickle things. They don't make sense, but that causes them to act. Again, the logical sale confirms it. The emotional sale makes it happen. Now, the buckets are different too, because the logical bucket's finite. If we have a bucket that's full of water, we can't put more water in it. It's impossible. If you have a client logically sold, you can't sell logic anymore. It's full. The emotional bucket, again, filled with their voice, that has holes in it because emotions are weird and fickle things and they change all the time. So when I went to my example, we had both buckets filled at the first meeting. We got the next step. But here's what happens in a normal traditional sale. We come in and we do the show up, throw up, where we just puke and brag about how good and great and wonderful we are. We're actually losing interest with them. One of the things I love saying in any of my interactions, especially the first time, I'm saying, is it all right if I skip over the part where I brag about how good and great and wonderful I am? Because no one cares. We don't need to do that. What we want to do is we start asking questions so we fill up that logical bucket. But then we make a mistake, we close too soon. We have to get them above the buying line. And we're closing too soon. So once we get them emotionally engaged, this is where I start the close. And I only have a finite amount of time. I can only close in this area in here because then I talk past the close. So again, both buckets need to be filled. We'll get the next step. On that example, that first meeting, I got both buckets filled. That first bucket was filled because he knew my neighbor. Had nothing to do with what I was selling. When I came back in 2 weeks, or the second meeting, he wanted me to go logic. He didn't have time. And I did go logic, but that emotional bucket was empty. They will never re-engage until we fill that emotional bucket. That's why we got to think about it. I would have been better served saying, when he said, Joe, we gotta cut this short because I gotta go across town. Let's see what you got. I would have been better served saying, okay, we can do that. Just want to touch on something we said at the first meeting and get him emotionally engaged. Bring up something he said at the first meeting before I present. Stop here. Any questions? Just go ahead and blot out a question if you have any. Is this making sense for everybody? And feel free to interact or put a question in the chat if you have any thoughts or that. Help yourself. Okay.
Thanks, Joe. You can keep going.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about how do we fill up that illogical bucket? And I know sales is kind of like, the night before a battle, you have your battle plans and everything makes sense. The battle starts, you take the plan, you chuck it out the window. What's the same as a sales call? As soon as we have an idea how the sales call is going to go, as soon as we get in the meeting, take the plan and check it out the window. Well, this earning is an acronym that we can use in our sales calls, and it can be embedded on any other any sales program or any sales script you have. This can interlay and mesh right on top of it. And we have to earn the right to ask for the next step. We have to earn the right to ask for their business. And each part is a letter of a topic we need to touch on. Again, we can go in this order, but it's also flexible, it's malleable.
I'm going to say something here too, just because I think when we think, I want everybody, and maybe you can frame it in this way, Joe. The sales is basically the same thing as a pitch, right? Absolutely. And we have a lot of founders here that are pitching themselves and asking for investment from people, which is basically asking for the same thing. And the same requirements have to be filled, maybe even more for an investor as they do for somebody buying a service. But not really. So just think about when people, if anybody's out there thinking, oh, this is just sales, this is the same process I use when I'm pitching investors. And what Joe and I are working on right now together in getting referrals is using It all is all with investors. So this is a very applicable system for both, in case
Oh, I agree. It's very transferable. It's used for investors. It can be used for your clients. And actually, my second book will follow up the How to Sell Nothing. It'll probably be How to Lead No One, where I take these same principles and put it into leadership. These same ideas are transferable to working with other key people on your team. We can touch on that in a second. But yeah, this is exactly where we want to look with it, where the first part is E, we just need to evaluate their current reality. I'm going to speak in terms of we're selling our product just so we get through the piece. We can spin it later and work with investors. But just because I think we get a better understanding of sales, because most of us have been in that one way, shape, or form. We've been around sales, or we've been sold, or we've had to buy things. So let's use that example, and then we'll transfer it in different at the end. But E just stands for we need to evaluate the current reality. It's our data gather. We just need to ask a lot of questions. I look at it, if I'm selling a similar product, an apples to apples comparison, I have to ask enough questions so I know what type of apples they have. I have to ask enough questions so they know that I know what type of apples they have. If I'm showing a different product, apples to oranges, I still need to ask enough questions so I know what they're working with. So E is this kind of how to evaluate the current reality. And again, I think we're pretty good on that part. The next part, advantages. What do they like about what they're doing right now? What's going well? What's working? What do they like about my competitor or the incumbent? If they already, let's say I'm not selling insurance, what do they like about their current insurance agent? And I get pushback saying, Joe, I don't like asking that question because I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm talking them into staying where they're at with their current vendor. Well, I love asking that question. My clients do. I mean, I get different results because I do things different. My clients get different results because they do things different. No one is asking what do they like about what they're currently doing. Another reason, it screams confidence. If you're asking what they like about their current vendor, boy, that is a confident. Business is given to confident people. The third part, and it's the most important part, they're literally telling me their hot buttons. Whatever they say they like, back in my mind, I'm thinking, ding, 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 I got to close on that, whether it's in 5 minutes or 5 weeks or 5 months. And I'm not going to know unless I ask. So E is evaluate their current reality. What are they currently doing? What have they done in the past? You need to know that. A, the advantages. What do they like? What's going well? Get really clear on that. R is revise. What do they want to change? This is the major reason why they're going to go forward. I don't lead off with it, but I want to get there. And I look at it right now that if we're talking to somebody as busy as we are nowadays, there's a problem there. If I'm talking to a company, they have a problem with their sales or their leadership or their culture. Otherwise, I would not be there. So it's EAR, evaluate the current reality. What are the advantages? Revise, what do they want to change? No. Who can say no? Who else needs to be involved in the decision-making process? One of the most frustrating things in sales is we go out and we give a great pitch. And they say, Joe, it sounds good. I got to run it by my boss and see what she thinks. I go, oh, great. Now I got to come back in and do my dog and pony show and pitch her. Or worse, they're going to sell my product for me and they're not an expert on it. And they're going to sell me for me and they're not an expert on it. If I don't have the decision maker there, I will try to back out of that meeting. You can't do it. I understand that. But I will try to get out of that meeting because I want them there, or I maybe go up to it, but I won't give them the final price. And again, I realize sometimes you're locked in and you can't. The next step is probably the most important, and you can apply it tomorrow. Interpret back what they just said. And it's a game changer in how that sales call goes, or how that pitch goes. Say, hey, just for clarity, I want to make sure I repeat back what you said and just go on a rant. And you take everything they talked about and evaluate the curve, repeat it right back to them. Say, what are the advantages? What do they like about it? Repeat it back to them. What do they want to change? What problems they have? Repeat it to them. Who else can say no? It's such a cool thing because you'll hear things like, well, crap, Pallo, you said it better than I did. And I just repeated it back. And here's the biggest thing. Mentally, I'm already on the same side of the table. And I haven't even started selling yet. It's a great spot to be. Interpret back. That is a big, big piece to say. Just for clarity, I want to repeat back what you say. And you may have made a mistake and they'll correct it for you. Next part, nothing. What if nothing changes? I ask this because this creates a sense of urgency. One of the biggest things I need to think about it. Well, I'm saying just curious, if nothing changes, what happens? And you're probably going to get a fluff answer. There's not going to be much there. I'm going to camp out on that and say, well, no, tell me more about that. What really is going to happen if we don't get this fixed? And then finally, gee, what's the gain? What's the pay value? In other words, if we fix this problem and we cleared up 2 hours, we took 2 hours by solving this problem and freed up 2 hours of your week, what would you do with that time? What would that gain? How would you apply it? What would you do with those 2 hours? Again, I have not started selling the whole way through. Any questions on this part? Anyone through?
I just had a comment, Joe, about the interpret. I think in leadership, you're going to speak about that a lot, right? Because sometimes we think as leaders that we understand the person that is in front of us. And when we say it again, we realize we're completely beside of the track. So I think it's very interesting in a sales model, or how you call it, to really interpret and re-say or say again in your words what you think the client wants.
Mhm.
I think. Did I understand better?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's emboldening and reinforcing what they're saying. And we all appreciate that. It validates what they're saying. So that is a key piece. And again, it's also very effective in leadership, in working with your employees. And even use this whole piece right here. It can almost be a one-on-one conversation with key employers, because leading is really selling on that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments on it? I'm going to move on if we don't. We have plenty more to come. Okay. But here's the thing. Most of earning is logical. How do we fill up the emotional bucket? Because that's really the one that's going to cause them to act. In the emotional, it's filled in with what I call dig-in questions. Basically, what they say is important, but I want to know why they said it. That's critically important. And the digging question is just basically me thinking whatever they're saying, I'm going to say, well, why is that? Well, why is that? Well, why is that? Well, why is that? And you can't do that because that's kind of creepy and weird. But a digging question is just a different way of asking that. What else? Can you give me an example? Can you say that again? Tell me more. How so? What does that look like? Help me out with that. I will ask dig-in question after dig-in question, because that gets their voice, again, filling up that emotional bucket. That's what I'm going to need to close on. That's what I'm going to need at the second meeting, and I'm not going to know. You go to my example. We have that both buckets filled. This is how I start the next meeting. In a sense, this is kind of really what happens. The earning and the digging questions are blended together. We ask them at the same time. When I'm going through the earning piece, I'm sprinkling in digging question, and I get an answer, and I'll ask a digging question about that answer, and then I'll ask a digging question about that answer, because that's what's going to cause them to act. And it really shifts the whole piece, where if we go through this, let's just say we're on a sales call, and I'm on my A game, and I'm going through the earning piece, and I'm asking digging question followed by digging question through each letter of the earning, and we've recorded that whole conversation. And then we came back and we played it back, but we edited out my voice. What are we left with? We're left with the person saying exactly what's going on in their current reality. What do they like about it? What needs to change? Who can say no? They just told us how to sell them. We just need to do that. The essence of how to sell nothing is literally selling what they want to buy. And it's easier if you ask the right questions. It's easier to sell what they want to buy versus sell what I want to sell. I think when we're even pitching or selling, we focus on, we want to sell what we want to sell. We want to sell this investor to give us money. Well, what do they want to buy? Let's sell that. That's a heck of a lot easier. And the other part is, by doing this and having them say exactly what they want and why, closing now just becomes logistics. There's no, it's not a big deal. If I can't get them emotionally engaged, I'm not going to close. That's my job as a salesperson. And you take all of the ickiness with sales. We've all had that bad experience with bad salespeople, and they're trying to push you and sell what they want to sell. Well, this destroys that. They've just told you what you want. You're looking for your peace of mind. Sales is not icky anymore. I mean, I don't sell that much, but people buy from me all the time. And this allows that to happen. And again, it's a cliche, and Chandler, you've heard me say this. Whoever's talking is buying. In a selling situation, if I'm talking more than they are, I'm literally buying their objections. And that same selling situation, if I get them talking more than me, they're buying whatever I want. So we look at it in terms of working with an investor. It's not really about your company or your product. Yeah, we have to have that logic. We have to do that piece. Yeah. But first, let's find out what type of companies they like to invest in. What are they looking for? What's important to them? And I'll chime in, Chan. I'll give you a chance to throw in. When you're talking to investors, what are some of the things that I'll put you on the spot here. What are they looking for?
Yeah, totally. I mean, investors are looking for value. They're looking for return, but not all of them in that order. And I think it's interesting because a lot of the investors that we work with also want to be sure that the products and the services that that they may invest in, or the people that they're investing in, also share the same values. And so, I think there's great teams out there, even myself, that I might be interested in working with, but I've seen the team, and you don't have to work with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you also look at how many times have we talked to somebody, maybe we've pitched our product, or we've had a sales call, and they're just stalled. They're just quiet. And you left the second meeting or the third meeting where I need to think about it. We probably have a massive amount of those people, current, past prospects, but they haven't closed. Well, they're just half sold. I would kind of make a short list and say, these companies, these opportunities that they're half sold, they said they were interested, but they didn't go anywhere. I'd come back and give them the earning process again and walk through with the digging questions, see if we can re-engage them. And again, we need to get them talking. It's a key point. And I challenge people and all my clients, they record sales conversations, and that they can do a sales audit, and they can listen back what they said, how many questions they ask. That's a great answer for you to know who's talking. Any questions on this? I mean, is it applicable to sales? And can you guys see where it's very transferable how we do this?
It's clear for me.
I mean, I think the biggest transfer that I see, where when we have an employee, we logically lead our employees. We don't emotionally. We tell them, hey, you need to do this. Well, that's logic. That's like a sale. They're not going to buy. They need to get emotionally engaged with what they want. Our job as a leader is help people in our company figure out what they want and have them tell us why they want it. That gives us our leverage to lead them, to manage them, to change their behavior, to cause them to act, to do the logical piece. This part is really key. The biggest part of it that I think, if you want 2 action items you can work with today or even tomorrow, it's going back and interpreting back what you just heard. It's critically important, and it forces you to take good notes, and it forces you to listen. And the second part is the dig-in questions. I think a lot of times people will go through and ask a dig-in question, and maybe they'll do 1 or 2. They don't get enough there. You really want to make sure you know why they said that, why is that important, because that's what's going to cause them down the road to act. It fills up their emotional bucket. And the emotional bucket, like I said, the logical one is finite. The emotional one, that has holes in it. And that's why every single meeting, I need to re-engage and see, okay, where are we at on that? Is that emotional bucket empty? Now, I got to talk about, sometimes we have longer selling cycles, or we have clients we've had for a long time. There's this thing called trust that fills in the bottom of that emotional bucket, where we may not need to do it as much, but we still want to check. I always want to make sure, say, hey, what's going on? What's important to you? Just to get a handle on that. And the key part is they need to say it. The power is in their voice, not ours. There's a handful of salespeople out there who have a skill set where they can fill up their emotional bucket. And I may be blessed or fortunate to have a little bit of that. But by and large, I still don't try to do that. I want them to say it because people believe what they say more than what we say. One other piece that's really important, if they ask a question at any time during this, I'm thinking what they ask is important, but why they ask it is extremely important. And we miss that all the time. We walk by that. If people say, Joe, do you do professional coaching? If they were to ask me that, I'd say, yeah, I do it all the time. I just did it yesterday. It's what I specialize in. That's answering the question. But I want to know why they asked that. There's something happens. They're thinking about something that causes them to ask that question. I want to know what that is before I ask it. This happened once. I was working with an insurance brokerage in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, a guy named Chas Horton. I mean, with a name like Chas Horton, he has to live in Alabama. And he's a good old boy. But I was going through this pitching with a couple of the partners on the call, and it was a sales pitch. And he was, Joe, do you ever work with younger people, younger salespeople, or some more experienced? The answer is, yeah, I do both. I do that. And I could have answered that. I said, yeah, I work with them, older, younger, it doesn't matter, experienced or new, but just curious, Chas, why did you ask that? He said, well, we got about 4 new agents coming on board, and in 2 months, we're having our national meeting, and I think it'd be good for you to come in and maybe talk to them. And I said, all right, that's kind of a good idea. And now that's how much more value I got by figuring out why he asked that question. I would have missed that, finding out that little bit of information. Just a quick little example of how important it is. If they ask a question, pause, give them a quick answer. You got to give them something, but just say, hey, I want to make sure I answer your question in the right context. Why is that important to you? Just curious, why did you ask that? It's not a threatening. We're looking for clarity to give them a better answer. And it's incredibly powerful. Once you know what they're saying, your answers are more on point, and it's what they really want. So, any other questions? I'm going to transfer. I'm going to move in a different direction if there aren't any other questions. Okay. Let's take this, how to apply it. There's basically 2 ways to do this. One, with your employees. We can actually do it with our prospects, and with your existing clients as well. Now, I'm going to use an example. This is where we're taking the earning process into leadership and into management. Because I know if you're starting a company, you're doing both. You're doing the sales, you're doing everything. We wear a lot of different hats. Well, this earning process with the digging questions can be applied to both. It can go both directions. But let's say we're talking with an employee. I'm going to be hypothetical and show you how to use, and again, I may go a long way around the barn, but we'll come back to this earning piece in a second. Let's say we're bringing on a new employee, and that's one of the first things we do. It's a big worry for us is leading a company. We have to trust other people. How do you do that? And I always strive when I do that, one of the first meetings, I'll say, let's come in and we want to have the expectation talk. And they've probably never even heard of that before. But it sounds something to the fact that if we're bringing on new employees, they have certain expectations of what we should do, and I have certain expectations of what I like them to do. Let's just get it out and open and talk about it. So these are things you can count on me to do. Now, this may be edited and go exactly to what you need. These are pretty generic, but you can take these and apply, but we go first. These are what you can count on me to do. And a sidebar from this came from years and years of me working and leading with people. These are the biggest problems I've had. Well, I put it with expectations. I'm kind of answering that objection in advance. It's a common thing in sales that we need to answer objections in advance. We know what they are. We have to bring them up because they're not going away. Well, when we're leading people, we know what the objections are. They're not going away. We have to bring them up in advance. And I'll go through this. If I was talking to an employee, say, hey, these are some things you can count on me to do. First, I'll do what I say I'm going to do. If I tell you you're going to get an email within 48 hours of us having a call, you're going to get an email within 48 hours of having a call. I'm just wired that way. Second, I said, I know what your work's like. You're going to have high highs and low lows. When bad things happen, we'll talk about it, but I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm just not wired that way. In other words, you can count on me that I'll always have a positive attitude. Next one, this is a big one, that I'm not going to ask you to do anything I'm not willing to do or have done before. And I'll pause when I ask that and say, just curious, why would that be important? And that's a big piece, because what they're saying right there is they're filling their emotional bucket. That's what I'm going to need. That's what I need to get out of them. I'm not going to ask you to do anything I'm not willing to do, or I've done it myself, or I've done it before. Why would that be important? And listen to what they say and write it down, because we need to know that. That's them filling up their emotional bucket on the leadership side. And then finally, that I'll believe in you. And at certain times in our career, we lose doubt. And sometimes we need someone just a step removed to provide a cornerstone or a way to get your belief. And it's provided you have goals that are, fast goals, frequently discussed, they're ambitious, specific, and transparent. These are all things you can count on me to do. And I think that's a great conversation they haven't had. But because we went first, transparency kicks in, a reciprocity kicks in, where now we can ask, here are some things I'd like to be able to count on you to do. And it's pretty much just the inverse of what we just said. It's first that you'll do what you say you're going to do. And in my mind, and I'll give them an example. If we have action items, my clients I coach with, they have action items. And this happened a couple of years ago. A guy's making $1 million a year. He wasn't doing his action item. And so on one of our calls, my coaching calls, I actually said, you know what? I'm going to put you on speakerphone. I'm actually going to do something else. I actually took our coaching time for him to do his action item. And he goes, Pallo, you're making me mad, but that's why I hired you. So if something happens or whatever, let me know, but I'd like to be able to count on you to do what you say you're going to do. Any questions? Okay, good. Next, we need some sort of speedometer, tracking some sort of activity. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter, but you and I need to know if we're making progress. Are we having activity? We need to know if we're having a good week or bad week. We can determine that next, but we need some sort of parameters where you and I both know we're going in a good direction. Other expectation, that you'll be open-minded and coachable, that you'll be on time for our calls when we set up our calls. If we can't, we reschedule within a week if we do have to reschedule that. And the last thing is you have my permission to challenge me. And I would say, now, why would that be important? I want them to talk about that, because that's opening up the door for two-way communication. And it's a key piece that we need to give them permission to challenge me. And that part started because when I first started coaching, I was working with top producers, top guys in the country. Nick Bard is the #1 mortgage guy in the United States, 2 out of the last 3 years. He's my client for 8 years. Nick has an ego. And if I didn't say this on this first one, a lot of times these top producers have egos and they're not going to be open-minded. But because I said, hey, you have my permission to challenge me, we're not competing anymore. He's much more open. And he can say, hey, what about this? And it's more of a communication, because it really doesn't matter. This is all what I say is the expectation talk. And it's an incredibly valuable conversation. It's way often skipped. It's not applied. We just assume all these things. And I look at it, this conversation is almost like we're in a conference room having this conversation, and you can have your notes there and have it written out. That's not a problem. You can even have a document, let them sign it. And not that it's a contract, but it's just make sure you keep track of it. But I needed something to take this great conversation, the valuable conversation, and bring it forward instead of leaving it in that conference room. So once we have the expectation talk, then I ask the next thing. It's what I call the critical question. I clear with their expectations. I share mine. I share theirs. And I'll say, just curious, is there anything else you want to add to it? Skipped a part there. They can add their own. They may or may not. And sometimes you hear some good stuff. But give them an opportunity to add to them. And then we ask the critical question. And basically, it's what should I say or what should I do if you're not doing something you said you were going to do? What should I say or what should I do if you're not doing something you said you were going to do? and get some good answers, get some good information. Ask a digging. Well, what does that look like? Tell me more. Give me an example. We need to have this clear, and I'm writing down the answers. And I'll repeat it back saying, this is what they're hearing. All right. So if I hear you right, you're giving me permission to hold you accountable. And they're going to say yes. My job as a leader is to help them figure out what they want and why they want it. And you look at their goals, and they say, their goals up here, their activities down here. Which one do you want to change? Well, if I've gone through someone with their expectations and I've asked the critical question and they're not doing what they said they were going to do, how can I bring that up? We're nice people. We don't want to be a jerk and say, hey, you got to get your activity up or whatever. Well, this gives you a vehicle to go back and have that conversation. You can say, hey, remember when we started, we had that conversation about expectations? And I'll say, yeah, I remember something about that. And we talked about things that you can count on me to do. And then I asked for things you can count on you to do. Remember that? Oh, yeah, I do remember that. Do you remember what I asked you after that? No, no. I asked you, what should I say or what should I do if you're not doing something you said you would do? What did you tell me? I told you you're kicking me in the rear. Yeah, I'm kicking you in the rear. They can't get mad at us. It's their words. They've given us permission. It's an incredibly useful tool. It makes sure that my role is to remind you of what you want, why you want it, and how you go forward and do that part. How do you do that? How do I hold you accountable to that piece?
I used this recently, Joe.
How to work.
That investor that I was telling you about last night.
Okay.
Call.
Yeah. How to work.
3 months ago, I'm a part of this group called the 601 Club here in Seattle. And one of the members had told me, oh yeah, gave me a whole list of names while I was going through the VC Lab program. And he said, hey, yeah, I want you to go back, identify a couple people and let me know and make the connection. And a couple months went by. That was back in like April. I reached out before Seattle Tech Week last week and maybe a month ago. Said, hey, I remember you said you were gonna connect me after, and I had already sent him something kind of a follow-up. And I said, hey, just wanted to check in because I know you said you wanted me to send you some information on how I could connect with a couple of people, and it's been a month or so. You told me to remind you when I finished it if you didn't get back to me, and I'll connect you. And that same day, he connected me with the investor that I've been trying to get to, and we met this last weekend for brunch, and then I have a investor lunch that he invited me to next week. So
Okay.
it wasn't exactly the way this went, but he's the same type of guy as you, Joe. And so I knew back then that this would work, like saying, hey, like, what should I do if in a couple months we haven't connected yet? So, but just from my lens, it's something I use.
Yeah, and again, a lot of our obstacles when we're starting a company or in sales or trying to grow, it's our thinking. We got to get out of our own way. By doing this, they've given us permission. Now we can go back and do that because, should I call them? I not? But if you've had this conversation and they've given you permission, it makes it easier for us.
It's so easy because you go, hey, before we leave, I just want to ask, if I don't hear from you in a couple weeks, what can I do? What do you want me to do to get in touch with you? You know? And it's a great way to get permission to follow up. And then also, yeah, I mean, you just have another excuse. And then they say, hey, oh yeah, that's right. I told you to do X, Y, and Z. And so it really is a hook. It's a hook.
Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts from anybody else? I'm gonna take it one more another step with this too, but I always want to have any other, or if anyone else has hey, what about this situation? I do a lot of what if types of questions, but let me know if you do, or pop them in the chat if you have them. Still staying on leadership. And again, we're taking the earning piece and the digging questions. We walk through it in the sales and the pitch arena. Now we're working with our critical people and our employees, but we want to make sure we've had the expectation talk. We've given our expectations theirs. We've asked the critical question. But now we're looking at how can we really help them fill their emotional bucket. And as a leader, that's our job. And I always kind of ask my clients, and Chandler, remember when I even asked you this because we went through this, do you agree with the statement that most people do not know what they want? I think that's pretty accurate. Most of them who know what they want, most of them don't write it down. So knowing what you want is important. Writing it down is even more important. But you know what's extremely important? It's why you want it. We miss that. If their why is strong enough, what now don't matter. Just get out of the way. And I think especially as we're starting a company, we may not have clarity on what we want or why we want it. We have a good idea, but we really want to make sure if your why is strong enough, again, what now doesn't matter. You'll figure it out. So I ask my clients, and it's probably good for every founder to have clarity of what's their vision and what's their goals. And I'll ask people, I'm a little old school. Well, I'll have my clients, and I challenge you to make a vision board. It's weird, it's dorky, and it's effective.
Our entire cohort's done it. Joe, remember when we did it together? I'm going to go back and try and find mine so I can show it for the one that I did. But this is a key, and it was the session that our funders were most excited about being there to see because they got to see the vision.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's something that I ask my clients to say, you know, it's for those who know, it's just a piece of cork with pictures on it. And it's pictures of what you want. Our mind speaks the language of pictures. If I say banana, we think of a banana. Well,
RG still has hers in her office too.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And it's probably good to every now and then refresh it because we have to do it. But it's different areas of your life. It's financial, spiritual, emotional. It's not just work. And you want pictures of them. Maybe a picture of a boat or an island or a vacation or Disneyland for the kids or whatever. But we want to have it up there. And when I ask you to do it, and this could be a good action item for everyone who's on the call, I want you to think in terms of be, do, and have. Be, do, and have. The haves, those are the things. And that's important. We need to have that. But those are things, those are consumable. That's all right. What do you want to do is a little bit harder. But really, who do you want to be?
Okay, Joe, I have a question for you about that board. When do you do it? With who exactly? Can you repeat? With who exactly do you do it? With clients, with employees, and how do you do it?
I think the answer is yes. How about that? Let me help you out. First, let's just say personally, every person should do it on their own. And I think that's the first step because you going through it is going to make you more effective for you to do it with your team. And again, it's just pictures. I think it's important to have it, have your whole family involved. If clear off the kitchen table, have your spouse get involved. If you have kids, I don't think we teach enough about our kids about goal setting, but have them do it because that's a heck of a lot of accountability. And again, it's just pictures of things that you want in your life. I want you to think big. And again, it's financial, spiritual, emotional. It's not just work.
An example. I'm just trying to find it.
Great.
I'll share it in the chat in a second so everybody can see the ones.
Yeah.
That
but that is clarity of what you want. Your vision is incredibly important.
And you do it with your clients or with your employees
or yourself,
or
you do it
or just with yourself.
At first,
vision
yes.
board.
It's your vision board, yes. And then I think this could be a good piece to talk to investors. If we're I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. We're talking about the emotional bucket. If you could share with them your vision board of what you see and why you want to do that, boy, that's helping them and fund you. That's a big piece on how we want to go with the vision piece. You know, and I believe the clarity of your vision is directly proportional to your endurance. Let me say that again. The clarity of your vision is directly proportional to your endurance. That's how hard we're going to work. And when they do the vision board, I have my clients send me a picture and then they talk me through it. I need to hear what's on there because me hearing what you want makes a difference on how I'm going to coach them, how I'm going to manage them, how I'm going to lead them. But more importantly, you hearing what you want and why you want it is important to you because it clarifies your vision. And again, the clarity of your vision is directly proportional to your endurance. This is stuff that if we're talking to investors, they want to hear your passion. You're going to be there. It's going to show up. You're going to stand out. And we're kind of tying it back. This is back to the earning piece. Your vision is what's in your emotional bucket. That's causing you to act. Logically, we know what we need to do, but we're not going to do it because you need both buckets filled in order to act. Well, it works in sales. It works with investors. It works with our team. It works with us. It's the same process. Questions on this? I'm going to take
No, I just put mine in the chat and I realized it looks it looks a lot like I want a family, and so I must have been in a family mood a couple years ago because, and just so to clarify, there's not just a random woman. I am, well, being gay myself, I want a surrogate, so I was always thinking about having a family, and I guess that's how it made it up in there with, and my husband's a twin, so I figured we might have twins. But anyway, it's cool though to go back and look, because this everybody in our program that we did for them How to Sell Nothing with you back at the end of 2023.
Yeah.
Everybody did a mood board for themselves, and it was so cool to see everybody's vision come out in those. And a lot of, actually, I know of 3 of us that still have our mood boards. Margie has hers up and Evan has his up. And maybe even Bill, from when we did this activity together. And I think it's a you can do it as a team. I've done it as a team, just as an onboarding, like build your vision board. And I think it's a great just engagement thing, but also it's for myself. And these are temporal, obviously. I think you grow, the things you change, you have to come back and revisit a plan. Right?
Absolutely. And they should change. Life changes. We should have things on there.
Yeah, because I don't want I don't want kids right now. So.
Yeah, and actually that's something else we think about. We can set a goal, and I gotta say it the right way, but sometimes it's not what you want. You know, that's okay. We learn, we change, life changes, life happens. That's not a big deal, but the big pieces are going to be there. But if it's something that has to change, that's fine. And I personally, with Vision Board, when you have it up there and you accomplish those things, because if you put it on there, it'll happen. Just update and put things on top of it, just so you can kind of see the past of how far you've come. But this is incredibly important for a great team building opportunity. I've done this. Actually, I'm doing it with a nonprofit up here, with a learning organization, with their whole company. And for them to share what they want and why they want it, boy, that's kind of a family-like. I think that's a good culture. And that's what they're looking at working on and creating. But yeah, this vision board is very transferable. This same process, earning, is good with our clients. You know, you may have to do the expectation talk to fit to your business, but say when you bring on a new client, walk through that expectation talk. Make sure you ask them the critical question. And this again goes with you if you've been around, you had some clients or have some investors, works with both old and new clients. It's very transferable. That earning piece with the dig-in question in the emotional buckets, it's all the same concept. We've just had a couple different ways to apply it. If someone's interested, I'm going to stop the share here. I can put in the chat. Hang on, let me do this over here. A free PDF with the earning piece on there. Let me go. There we go. Go to convertsalesfaster.com and there'll be a free download for a PDF for the earning code of the earning piece with all the definitions on there. And I recommend printing it out, having it by your keyboard, because when you're going through a sales call, you can use it. You're not going to do it in that step every order. It's going to be messy. That's what sales is messy. It's supposed to be that way. It's never organized, but it keeps you on track. And the biggest pieces, I would say, interpret back what they said and the dig-in questions. Also, if someone's interested in my book, it's on Amazon. It's How to Sell Nothing. It's a logical way to make the emotional sale. I think your channel got it there. Just
I have it. Let me.
here.
I have it.
Yep.
I don't know, oh, here, let's see. There we
Yep.
go.
Yep. But there's a lot more principles in there, but the whole theme of what we went through with the logical and emotional bucket is definitely in there. It's that whole theme is throughout. So hopefully I've given you some ideas on different ways to apply this, again, with the investors, with your employees, with your clients, a lot of different takeaways from how to apply, how to use this.
Well, Joe, thank you so much today. And I'll see if there are any questions here before we close out. But it's just so exciting to have you because you are my coach. We literally talked last night. We've been working together since late 2022 or early 2023. So and you've worked with our cohort. So it's just great to have you here. I love hearing this again and being reminded because it's about repetition. I wrote my scripts that I use now. So it's all about muscle memory, and this is something you can learn.
Sure.
And I'm learning it, and I'm learning a lot from you. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. And it looks like we have a question from Caleb.
Hi. Hello there. Thanks, Chandler, for recommending I join this and just sort of listen, which I'm very happy to do. My name's Caleb. I'm in VC Lab Cohort 18. And raising a $10 million VC fund. It seems that this group is aimed at helping like non-traditional entrepreneurs, fund managers, and business people, such as LGBTQ and or BIPOC and neurodiverse, with like ways to manage business situations that like most people don't have to think around or about. It seems to be the case. I don't know if I'm right, but my question is, how do you go about your sort of your career, knowing that, or rather feeling that, because of this factor which you can't name, 2023 is when I learned the term neurodiversity, and I'm 36. I had to work at Wells Fargo to do that. So like not many, I don't know. All I'm trying to say is, how does someone who's like late diagnosed and stuff like that? I mean, even before I got diagnosed with ADHD, it was like I was able to do things and work for good companies. But after I was diagnosed and started taking sort of like just getting counsel and such regarding that, it's like when you unmask, you realize that you've been taught ways to be and do things that don't necessarily work for you, but because your parents were neurotypical, that just is it. Unless you decide to get curious and like completely recontextualize your life. And that period of unmasking, if you don't manage it well, which it's like, what does that even mean? There's no blueprint for that.
I know what you're saying, Caleb.
Yeah, I don't even know how to ask.
I know what you're saying, and
like,
because I myself
articulate it.
Fellow neurodivergent, and I think I can interpret this here.
Yeah.
Also, I was raised by parents who are definitely late diagnosed, 60s, in their 70s, and they raised me without even realizing they were neurodiverse, and there were a lot of things we had to relearn, and most people don't think that way. What I love about this system, Caleb, what I love about working with Joe is I didn't realize it until I started my professional career that there are things that I interpret differently.
Yeah.
And there are things that like my excitement for something isn't always interpreted as a good thing from clients that don't really care what you have to say yet. So you're like, you think you're like, oh, they're like, they encourage you growing up, ask questions, you know, be friendly, be, you know, blah blah blah. And then in business situations, being that kind of having that mask on, those
Yeah,
behaviors,
makes people want to take advantage of you.
yeah,
Like you
oftentimes
really just like to be crap to you for no reason. And it's like I've encountered this in education, employment, even
yeah,
housing. It's just like for some reason, like you get to a place, and originally like things are fine, but for some reason that nobody can understand, that I can understand. I mean, I've heard of the double empathy problem. Maybe that wears on people. It's like, okay, it's like I came into this environment, and you folks, you know, whatever corporate environment hired me, and yet I'm just acting naturally. And hey, you know, uh, being a person with ADHD, like Concerta has changed my life.
mhm.
It's amazing. But you know, I raised 100,000, 120K in commitments for this VC lab in like 2 days. So okay, thank you, very grateful. At the same time, I don't know how to put it. It's like how do you actually uh, do like live authentically and work authentically? And like for me, like thinking about it, for me, I'm just like, okay, like what are, this is like categorically like what are, you know, the top, you know, mental illnesses that can have a terrible impact on you know, your life and business if you find the wrong client who is unaware or something like that. You know, like what are the dark tetrad personalities, and like what are the signs and what questions to ask in your, you know, sort
I
of.
think this is Joe. You can answer this by talking about the. So the other day we worked on the referral script together, where you talked about
I remember that. That was fun.
asking
Yeah.
about what type of values and clients you wanted to work with, and
Hmm.
you went through it with me, Joe, about how you said like, okay, so tell me, what are the things you like about working with me, or like about our team,
Right.
or
Right.
what are some of the values that you really appreciate when when you're working with a partner or somebody else. And it's the hot list, you know,
Yeah.
you got
Yep.
your list of things, you know,
Okay,
you say,
that
hey,
makes sense.
I want, these are the types of, so I don't know, Joe, do you want to walk through that?
Sure. Sure. Well, two things. One, I think I always strive to, it's the old cliche. If you help enough people get what they want, you get what you want. And
Yeah,
I maybe
I
have a servant selling approach or leadership, and that's kind of been my way, where if I can help you figure out what you want and why to do that, and you can see me as a vehicle for you getting there,
yeah.
that's where I want to get to.
That's
Um,
exactly what we're talking about, VC Lab. Like, how do you engineer, like, verbally in your thesis, your secret sauce, such that your differentiating, like, returns factor is so strong that
mhm.
the, you know, any other, you know, say venture capitalist entering your target, your fund size and target stage, you know, they're not going to do it as well as you. But when I saw that assignment, I was like, oh, so like everyone here basically knows everyone wherever. So in a place full of exceptional people, how do you differentiate yourself to be sort of that 1% niche person, that your clientele slash investment base and startups can come to and do so willingly and happily.
It's
But
this
also,
relationship.
yeah, but also then them like knowing, like I want to be able to walk to open up my laptop every day, get on Zoom and or go to the office and talk to founders and funders, etc., all of whom know, hey, you know, I have an ADHD type brain, and you know, you enjoy at my business not only but my company, not, you know, in spite of that, but because of the like behavioral differentiators that allowed me to do a complete overnighter for a current sprint, with full detail, zero sleep. And together with the 120K raise, I'm still in VC lab. That happened in one night because no,
Confidence.
because no, because I know myself.
Yeah.
I've been like this since I was an adolescent. Like,
Right.
if there's a paper and I've been procrastinating for 3 weeks, yes, like, it may suck and it may hurt, but like that end of 12th grade, that English AP class, I stayed up for 3 nights and wrote 80 pages on Lord of the Rings and, the industrialization of England for my 12th grade English teacher, because I know that when I am when I allow my large energy to actually come out, that can sustain me for days.
And same with, I think this is a great thing to end on here, because this is the value of this, and why I invited you, Caleb, because I've navigated very similar things as
Yeah.
you, and I realized that we, instead of having to adapt to every situation differently, which can feel exhausting,
Yeah.
what we can do is I realize, using Joe's formula, using these ways to learn more about people, I actually have to spend less time thinking about what I want to say and what I need to say and filling that space.
Yeah.
And people really, at the end of the day, love talking about themselves.
Yep.
And they love sharing.
Yeah.
So,
Just ask them about themselves. I agree.
yeah. And when the way I got in, with this investor was, I knew he was having a barbecue with his family that night. I knew he was into smoked meat. So I was like, hey, just followed up with him the next day, said, hey, how was your dinner? How was the lamb? I was like, next time we meet, let's both bring a smoked meat, and we can do something at one of our houses, because it's more about me hearing what was. And he followed up. He sent me the cookbook. He
Mhm.
sent me a picture. He was so proud. He was like, oh, it was a great time, blah, blah, And so I think the value is in getting out of our way. And I think, Caleb, what is helpful for us is thinking about this as a roadmap to help us get out of our way, because we live in our head a lot, and most people
Maybe.
aren't going to be aren't I just know most people really don't and won't have the opportunity to take the time to learn all of that about us before
That's in fact, most people like it will see it as a detriment, won't care or won't want to care.
Yeah.
And the instant they hear any letters, much less a word, they're going to want to entirely destroy your career and make you leave their workplace as soon as possible.
It
I've
can be, I think it can
never had a
be,
situation in my life where disclosing, like, I've never had a situation in my life where, like, disclosing what I was going through at work led to a positive outcome. It's never happened because there's no there's like, if I don't know if I'm autistic, but if I were, I would say that there's almost no literature on, like, black autistics. So black gay autistics. Is that what decimal point number is that? So okay, there's that. Then there's okay. You know, what if what if it's just a matter of alignment, right? Like, maybe if you just find the right place, that can work. Uh, but it's like the more you need, like, the more they hate you. So it's like, do I bottle everything up, like, every single work day in a 9 to 5 workplace and hope that nobody finds out? Or do I just sort of like go through each day looking like, yeah, I'm gonna mask all the time and pretend that the job trauma doesn't exist and that I'm not waiting for the other shoe to drop and someone to say or
what
think something.
Caleb, what I think would be great, and we
Please.
have to end this because I have
I
another
understand.
session coming up.
I'm
But
not good with time.
Joe is my coach. Joe is my coach, and I've probably gone through the same thing with him at some point or another over the next 2 years. And I'm sure he would love to schedule, or do a mini session for you or work with you. But I think it would be great, let's wrap this, and I will facilitate a connection between you and Joe, and you guys can chat.
Thank you.
I think you also have the network too. You come from finance, you come from the background, you guys are going to love each other. So with that, Joe, let's we usually give everybody a last word. I'm going to give you a last word, and then we'll close it out.
Sure. Two things. One, if there's a lot more ideas, How to Sell Nothing, it's on Amazon. So a lot of the ideas on there. And then the next thing, it kind of even ties into help people figure out what they want, and you be the way to help them get that. You'll get what you want. It works. And it's the right way to put your head on your pillow knowing you're doing the right thing. So focus on what they want and how you can be a vehicle to do that. And you don't have to worry about yourself.
I totally agree.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much, Joe, for being here, and we thank you all for taking a little bit over an hour today to join us, and we look forward to seeing you all next week.
Yep. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Bye.
Yep.